Once the world shifts, and it shifts in a way that you're not necessarily able to, that's adverse for you, what do? First year, maybe a couple years, you sort of hang on by your fingernails, and you hope the world is going to shift back to the way it was. And then after 3 years, maybe people start losing their grip and they start falling. Or maybe you decide you have to jump and you have to make a big change. And there are a lot of countries, a lot of companies, a lot of industries that are caught out by this latest change. Now the thing is, we've gone through pretty much this exact same shift before. And I don't mean in distant past, I mean in the 1980s. Now, 1980s, most of you look too young to remember the 1980s, but I remember the 80s, great decade. And there was a lot of things that happened in the 80s that are relevant to our situation here. The first falling object that occurred in the 1980s was countries. Countries that were oil producers defaulted on their debt. Countries that depended on cheap credit then defaulted on their debt. So Mexico, Chile, Argentina, Costa Rica, Brazil. It spread pretty much all of Latin America, Asia, Philippines, Malaysia. Another falling object, the U.S. savings and loan industry. Does anybody remember the U.S. savings and loan industry? Probably not, because it's essentially gone. And you say, well, okay, the reason the savings and loan industry collapsed was because of bad U.S. financial regulation. And yes, U.S. financial regulation is generally very bad. We like to have a financial crisis every now and then to keep everybody paying attention. But the economic reason the savings and loan industry collapsed, right, is these savings and loans are doing one thing, mortgages. Mortgages are on fixed low interest rates over the long term. Then U.S. interest rates go up, so their deposits, in order to attract deposits, they start having to pay really high interest rates. And so you're paying really high interest rates out to depositors, but you're only getting low interest rates in. Eventually, you hang on. They hung on for years. They hung on for a few years, and then they start to collapse. And by the middle of the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, 100 savings and loans a year collapse. Basically, the entire industry was wiped out. So that's a falling object, right? So if the world changes in an adverse way, you can really, you have to watch for these kind of falling objects.